I want to say to you that 66 years of service, that's 41 from Geoff and 25 from Nancy, doesn't come easy. And it is a phenomenon which is becoming more and more rare. I have not stayed in any one place of work for more than 12 years, and I can't imagine staying in any one place of work for more than 12 years. But I have huge admiration for people like you, Geoff, and Nancy, who have given so much of your lives to one place and to this particular place. Thank you. Geoff teaches and does many other things besides teaching. Nancy does many other things and teaches as well. And I think it's important that we realize that there is that common thread between the two of them. And when I've asked a few students over the past few days for comments about Geoff and Nancy, there's been one thing that's come up again and again and again from everyone, and that is they understand us and they are here for us. And you really do exemplify that. Students have been at the center of what you've done in this school for so many years, and look at them. Here they are. These are your works. You should be proud. You probably recognize, some of you, one of the laments that our piper played this evening. It's a wonderful Scottish lament, "Will ye no come back again?" And the refrain is, "Will ye no come back again? Will ye no come back again? Better loved you've never been, will you no come back again?" And I think we say that to the two of you. Better loved you've never been. Please make sure you come back from time to time. Vermont is not far away, and Sharon is very close by. You are both teachers, and you both understand that extraordinary alchemy of teaching when you literally inspire other people. You breathe into them. And because of that, and because one of the most memorable occasions that I've shared with you in the last 6 years was when Seamus Heaney came to visit and speak and read and recite at Hotchkiss in Elfers Hall, I want to share with you all now just a very short poem from Heaney called "The Given Note." It's about a fiddle player who has found a very powerful and pure air out of the night. So it's called "The Given Note." On the most westerly blasket, in a dry stone hut, he got this air out of the night. Strange noises were heard by others who followed, bits of a tune coming in on loud weather, though nothing like melody. He blamed their fingers and ear as unpracticed, their fiddling easy, for he had gone alone into the island and brought back the whole thing. The house throbbed like his full violin. So whether he calls it spirit music or not, I don't care. He took it out of wind off mid-Atlantic. Still, he maintains, from nowhere. It comes off the bow gravely, rephrases itself into the air. I think in both your very different ways, you've gone alone into the island and brought back the whole thing for your students and for the school, and I thank you very much for that. Now, you probably thought that the lights going off earlier on was an accident. It wasn't. It was a dress rehearsal for something that's going to come now. Will you please turn off the lights, baby? And will you please turn around, if you're looking at me, and face the middle of your table? And will you please look into the candles that are flickering there? And please think about the flames that these two have lit and sustained over many years. They will burn long after you leave here. Thank you very much.
Ain't nothing better than watching you smile. Whoa, 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 whoa. Ain't nothing better than watching you laugh out loud, my baby. Ain't nothing better than watching you be you. Ain't nothing better than right now. In your eyes lie the secrets I don't wanna miss. Put your hand in my hand and make a fist. Grab my shirt, curl your lip as if you know. Staring back in my eyes saying please don't go. I don't know what I know, what I know, what I know what it is that you really, really want or you need. I hate every moment away from you. I see you sleeping in my dreams. I know you're in your mother's arms. I know that you're safe from harm. You know.
It's wonderful to be back here at Hotchkiss with all of you. As we drove up, I could almost hear the school song going repeatedly in my head, especially the off-key portion in the second verse. It was wonderful. It's my pleasure to be back here tonight to help honor two amazing faculty members who've dedicated a large portion of their lives to the student and faculty here at Hotchkiss. I'm here to speak specifically about the contributions that Nancy Bird has given to the lives of innumerable students here. More specifically, I'm here to speak about the amazing gifts that she's bestowed on me by being a part of my life for 20 years. I first met Nancy in the fall of 1993 when I was a student going to BASA meetings. And for those of you who aren't in the know, BASA is the Black and Hispanic Student Alliance. And as a student coming to Hotchkiss from Harlem, it was always interesting to me that Nancy was the faculty advisor on that group. For no reason in particular, it was just interesting. Our interaction was limited, and she kept her role nominal. She quelled boisterous discussions because we were a lively group, and she helped guide us when we were feeling quieter. She helped facilitate discussions. Our discourse was limited, so she just became a smiling face in the crowd, someone I could nod my head to as I passed in the hall, and someone who hopefully would give me an excuse to get a red card when I needed one. Whew, sorry, you should never write speeches and have to look down to them. Our real interaction began in 1996 when I was in upper mid, and I started hearing about this new course that was coming to Hotchkiss, Human Development. I didn't really know what it was, but I was applying to college, and I thought, well, you know, this might help me out. So I applied, and luckily for me, I was accepted and became a teacher's assistant that year. It was an interesting year and one of the most meaningful that I've ever had at Hotchkiss. I worked with someone that I wasn't really familiar with, and I often gave Nancy the raised eyebrows when I found out I was paired with someone I'd never really talked to. But there was a method to her madness, because we became good friends and I got invited to a lot of parties that I would not have otherwise been invited to. It was a wonderful time and a great learning experience. When I think about human development, I could talk about the opportunity to help teach lower mids. I could talk about the pressure that we felt that year to make sure that it was a success because it was the new program. It was the first year and we really didn't want to screw it up. We wanted to make sure that it would be something that would be a living legacy for Nancy and Ms. Gaynor and all the other faculty that were involved. And I think we were fairly successful. I could talk about the interaction that I had with my fellow seniors that year and how our friendships developed. But what I really want to talk about with human development and why it became such an important part of my life in my last year there and why Nancy became such an important part of my life is that night. That one night that so many of my other seniors, HD TAs talk about. I'll preface this by saying when I found out that I was going to come talk here, I reached out to those other guys and asked them, are there any memories you'd like me to share with Nancy? And they all talked about that one night. It was a night, I don't even know if you remember this.
I don't know yet.
It was one of those team building exercises. And if you've ever been a member of a team, you have done one of these. And sometimes they can be cringeworthy and no one will say anything, but this night was special. The lights were darkened and all of the 18-year-olds sat around that room and shared all their pains and struggles that they've been going through. And Nancy and the other teachers assured us that none of the things that we said that night would be repeated or shared with other people. And I kept up my part of the bargain. But I'll tell you what I said that night. That night, I told Nancy and my other TAs about my father having cancer. And I told her that he was dying. And I told her I didn't know what I was going to do. And we all talked, and we all shared, and we all cried. And at the end of that night, Nancy gave me a hug. And she looked in my eyes, and I knew she understood the struggle that I was going through. Many times in your life, you meet people and you tell them, they ask you how you're doing, and you tell them, and they'll say, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. But that night when I told her what was happening with me, she really knew. And the other TAs, all of them felt it. I wasn't the only one that shared. So after that night, getting closer to graduation, my father, who had cancer and who'd been struggling in the hospital for a year, managed to make it to my graduation. And I introduced him to Nancy. And she told him all of the things that my 18-year-old mind could not think to tell my father. She told him how important it was to me that he was there and how much I loved him. And she made sure that he heard all of those things that I could not say. And that's why I'm here tonight. That's why I flew from Nashville to be here to speak in front of you. Because there are moments in your life that people become significant parts of it. And it's fleeting. It can be an introduction. It can be a 5-minute conversation. But after my father died, I knew that he knew how much I loved him. And it was because Nancy helped to tell him. So thank you. Thank you for that day. Thank you for that night. Thank you for that year at Human Development. Thank you for everything that you've given to students. And congratulations on your retirement. I am truly happy that you can move on to the next portion of your life. But I'm sad for all the students who won't get the opportunity to have these moments with you. Thank you. Cry. But I also have the duty to introduce Alex Tonelli, who will be coming up to speak after me. So thank you guys for your applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. It's great to be speaking after you.
Glad to see you again.
I compose myself. I
was already overwhelmed with emotion being here, celebrating with so many friendly faces, two people that were so meaningful to me. I thank you for sharing that, Karen.
No, thank you, man.
I think Mrs. Bird, I think Nancy, I'm working on that. I think Nancy wanted me to speak tonight because I was fortunate to be the beneficiary of some of her best work. I had a somewhat different, albeit I wouldn't say completely unique Hotchkiss experience. To try to give some context, I came in the fall of '99 with not much but a ugly tie, a hockey bag, and a chip on my shoulder that was visible to everyone, but endeared me to very few. I suspect that Nancy, well, let's just say, I suspect that Nancy saw someone who was in great need of human development, for lack of a better term. So I was ill-equipped for school, having come from one of the worst public schools in New York State. I was ill-equipped culturally, having come from a broken home, spending most of my free time supporting my grandmother and working when theoretically she was supporting me. And I was ill-equipped socially. I guess the big symbol of that was a Bluetooth I sported at the time. No, that's not the headset that is popular now amongst bankers. That's an actual Bluetooth that I had as a relic of a hockey injury. And I think it spoke to my being a bit raw. So Nancy went to work, and please forgive me for boiling down the dozens of things she did into three major ones. The first was she managed to have monk-like patience with me and managed to teach through very difficult situations. I think about an HD class, and actually Karen asked me if I was an HD teacher. I said, no, I'm an HD student. And I was a student in Nancy's HD class where I made a vitriolic, immature comment as we were discussing a very difficult issue around women's issues. Nancy pulled off a magic trick that I've seen her do dozens of times now, but it was the first time that I'd seen her do it, which was that her response started with a smile and ended with a question mark. And, the 30-minute discussion that followed was one of the best discussions I had in the class at Hotchkiss. I learned about a topic that I obviously was very ignorant about, and I think speaks to her ability to teach. The second thing that she did was advocate for me. Very few people to that point had advocated for me. Excuse me. I like to think of it as Nancy in the faculty room, putting people in headlocks, and you know, keeping me in school. In reality, it was probably a lot like that HD class where she started with a smile and ended with a question mark. And without her and others, many of whom are here, I certainly would have made it through. The third thing she did was she actually cared about me. So it doesn't go like this when I do it in practice. Which was something that I was not very used to before coming to Hotchkiss. I don't know how she found time. She, as everyone knows, is a community icon and busy putting her passions to much work in a lot of great ways. She was also raising Charlie and Liz at the time, two of the most well-grounded and well-intentioned people I know. But yet she found time for me. The biggest vision of that was, oddly enough, I think Charlie was making fun of the aforementioned Bluetooth. Thank you, Bob, for that, Charlie. I think Nancy asked her husband, Dr. Bird, Bob, I'm told, to come in on his off day and fix it, and he did. Suffice it to say that 9:30 to 10 was a lot more interesting after that, and it was a lot more fun. And I felt a lot less like a Marchant at the Hotchkiss School. When my grandmother died, P.O. Box 800 became my home address, not my mailing address. Mrs. Bird was very clear that there was always a place at 13 Rolling Hills Road. She was curious where I was going on holidays and vacations, when often I was too prideful and slept in my car. And she kept me in plentiful supply of her famous tacos. Hotchkiss is a place that builds people up, or can build people up. It can teach them to face challenges, improve themselves, and be ready to improve the world around them. It did that for me because of people like Nancy Bird and Geoff Marchant and many others around the room. It doesn't do that for everybody, and Nancy has had a 25-year push to make it do it for as many people as possible. She fought at micro level to take care of people one-on-one like me and Karen. And she fought for a more progressive curriculum. She fought for people to be more inclusive. She fought for people who didn't have voices at a place that is often happy to enjoy its past. The last time I saw Nancy, and she did it tonight too, so tonight and the last time I saw her, she gave me a smile and a hug that only people who are truly passionate about what they do, or can give, rather. And I'm really sad, as you can tell now, about thinking about her leaving Hotchkiss, but excited about her. I'm excited about her going on and giving that passion to other things. So I'm very grateful for everything that you've done for me, and Dr. Bird and Charlie and Liz, and even moreover, thankful for everything you've done for Hotchkiss. Thank you. So I also have the great pleasure of introducing Bart and Kara Marchant.
Thank you everyone who has come tonight to enjoy the celebration of the careers of Nancy Bird and, ooh, tears coming now, and our father, Geoff Marchant. We know that many of you traveled quite a distance to be here, and it means a lot to our family to have you together with us tonight. Also, we would like to thank the staff members of the Development Office who have worked tirelessly to throw this party, Patty O'Connor and Caroline Riley, among the others. My brother and I decided that it would take both of us to cover all 41 years. Our father is the son of a postman. Our grandfather carried the mail in Evanston, Illinois for 20 years. Neither rain, nor sleet, nor snow, nor the wind blowing in off Lake Michigan would keep him off his route. Our dad attended a large public high school there, and after graduating headed east finding himself at Princeton, where he manned the net for 4 years. When it was time to find a job, my father had two choices: work in a men's clothing shop in Mobile, Alabama, owned by the father of his roommate, or try teaching at something called a boarding school in Connecticut, a position he learned about from his teammate at Princeton, Cameron Smith, who had attended Hotchkiss. Yeah, I hear you over there, 73ers. He took a leap of faith and signed on for teaching, as Cameron had a history position here too. There may be some out in the audience tonight who had these two in their early years. I tell you this story just to give some perspective on who our father was when he arrived. A young college graduate with a lot of enthusiasm and absolutely no idea what a boarding school was or what kind of education it provided. And yet he somehow managed to make it his craft and pursue it with unflagging dedication. When he talks about those early years, he will tell stories of sitting in the English office with Dick Gurney and Robert Hawkins, about the critical role that Blair Torrey played for him, taking him under his wing and mentoring him, about grading 3 sets of daily themes for 10th graders, 3 sets a night in the month of February, about coaching with Arthur White, about life on Beeler 3, his first home. From the beginning, it is clear that several things are and always have been true of my dad. First, he loves writing, and he loves the teaching of it. There are many of you out there, and I include myself and my brother in this, who have learned so much from Geoff about how to write. In fact, some of you have probably received in the last few months a daily theme, which my father carefully saved for years in case he needed it as an example. And you've had a chance to reconnect with that young voice he was helping you find. And it was a craft to be tended to, rewrites, revisions that could only lead to good things, both in the sphere of writing and in future endeavors. From the beginning, there was also the coach, the goalie coach, the soccer coach, the basketball coach, the baseball coach, the third base coach, and the inspiration and antics that came with it. The rise, run, and dips, the pause for aesthetic breaks, the spring break trips to Florida for baseball, the cider and donuts at sunset, the feeds before a big soccer game, the smoking of cigars on the bench of a JV baseball game against Kent for 3 years running, a snowball thrown during batting practice in March, Mr. Taft, I experienced this, or Mr. Williston, who would hop into the goal the day before the big game and taunt the shooters. Get us ready. While my father coached boys soccer for almost a decade with Dave Coughlin, and most recently on several more boys teams that won championships, in the middle he coached the girls' varsity soccer team at the dawn of women's athletics at Hotchkiss. He led the team to the championship game against Williston or Northfield year in and year out, and they won time and again. He created a culture of pride and tradition for the program that Christy Cooper continues to this day. As a woman, I feel this is one of the greatest gifts that he gave to me, as I had the good fortune to grow up on those sidelines, surrounded by so many examples of what it meant to be a woman athlete. Perhaps most importantly, from the beginning, there was the care given and the joy drawn from working with students. There are his years in the dorm, Beeler and Coy, when he spent countless nights counseling a student after a bad breakup or through some personal challenge. And even after he left the dorm, he continued to maintain a strong connection to students. I can remember a phone call from a panicked junior who did not want to return to school after winter vacation. My dad talked him through it. He draws great joy from the small moments of connection with students, and that is what will fill an email when I ask how his day went. A great new goalie drill he invented, a new way to look at a passage in Invisible Man, how students responded to the Thomas Church painting that he showed them in class. This is at the heart of what he loves about his work. And so there it is at the core of it: teaching, coaching, students. And what comes from this? The blending of vocation and avocation. Students learning to tap a tree, how to turn a cider press. Students in our home for an advisee dinner. Cookies baked in the school kitchen to sell at a fundraiser for a baseball trip. Memorization of poetry to be recited in class later that day. In fact, my brother here learned much of a King Lear soliloquy at the age of 4 simply by hanging out with my dad in the kitchen as he played a tape over and over again, learning the lines to recite.
unfortunately, I no longer know those lines. But what do you mean, Kara? You can't just learn poetry by being around Dad. But if it is a spring moment, and if I were in a poetic mood, I would probably say, a bluebird comes tenderly up to a light. And turns to the wind to unruffle a plume. You're right, it does really hit you, doesn't it? His song so pitched as yet not to excite, a single flower as yet to bloom. It is snowing a flake, and he half knew that winter... Come on, man. That winter was only playing possum, and except in color, he is not blue, and wouldn't advise the thing to blossom. And others must have adopted this poetic passion also, and you'd be surprised to know how long and lasting those memories can be.
Gentlemen, for I have learned to look on nature, not in the hour of thoughtless youth, hearing oftentimes the still, sad music of humanity, nor harsh, nor grating, though ample power to chasten and subdue. But I have felt a presence that stirs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime, something far more deeply interfused,
and the round ocean, and the living air, and the blue sky,
many things, all objects of all thought.
It flows through all things.
That's from Tintern Abbey. And there you have it. An impact that will never be forgotten. People passionate about poetry and about nature because a sharp kid from Evanston, by way of Louisiana, decided to take a leap of faith into teaching English. Which leads me to a story I'd like to share with you. I was asked in an interview recently, what are the 3 most important things you learned from your mother and that you learned from your father? And I clearly said, don't be a teacher, don't be a teacher, and don't be a teacher. But in all seriousness, the answer came to me clearly and quickly, because my parents have given me things, and many of you around this room as well, that are invaluable in life. Without hesitation, I answered, from my mother, I've learned to stick to my guns, to prioritize tasks, and stay calm in stressful situations by doing things that make me happy, by reading, by writing, and by exercising. Not that those are in the family gene pool, of course. And I continued, and from my father I've learned to speak and convey energy to other people, whether a sports team, my professional peers, or groups of friends, homeless people that I'm working with, and hopefully all of you, to lead by example in any situation. I've watched the Mar as a goalie, player, coach, as a one-man performer of Robert Burns, in front of crowds of entertained people who don't even know or understand what they're listening to, but can't get enough of it. Being a constant voice of reason in various situations and departments at Hotchkiss, and most importantly in the classroom, where a number of my classmates made it their priority at a 5-year reunion on a hungover Saturday morning at 9 a.m. to catch Mar's class. We're talking about a man whose knees were damaged so much after 53 marathons that he completed that of course he took up biking. And at a Cheshire soccer game my senior year during warm-ups, somebody said, "Hey, who's that guy walking across the field with a bike on his shoulder?" And I said, "That's Mar. He biked here." It was 50 miles. And we obviously won the game, but we'd won it before the whistle even blew. And then the slacker managed to take the bus home. Most importantly, I learned the most incredible and natural skill that my father has, which is to help people accomplish what they never thought they could. He has a way of inspiring with such a positive and genuine passion in all things that he does, that one has no choice but to rise to his level. And from shearing branches off trees in Princeton and Evanston to shearing down boards with groups of groups of students constructing cabins and walkways through these woods, he has truly come full circle. Which is why I'd like to tell you about the Geoff Marchant who is retiring. He's retiring from Lakeville, the place that he's called home for 41 years, a small town where he's been involved in athletics, playing for the Lakeville Hose Company and coaching every imaginable sport in Lakeville. He's been involved in countless community organizations, runs, fundraisers, and he has formed many a deep and lasting friendship here. And of course, he's retiring from Hotchkiss. He has taught in every English classroom the school has ever built, and I think they've built some just to accommodate him. He has hung from many a chalkboard while teaching dangling modifiers. No joke. He has built his own outdoor classrooms by Sucker Brook and by the Stink Swamp, occupied the offices, albeit very rarely, of the main building. And he has stood his post at the Heavenly Hoyt Field, the fearsome 49s, and at Centennial, on the glossy sheen of the William C. Fowl Gym, and the vaunted Upper Gym of old. Can you help me with this one?
Yeah. But he is also retiring from the bowels of the dining hall where he always had a smile to give and cheerful words to say to anyone there. He is saying farewell to Carol, Brian, Tim, Pat, and Bernie, who were always fixing him up, and all athletic employees who would only have kind words to say about him. He is exchanging a last boisterous laugh with the men of the grounds crew and the carpenters like Gene Lachine and John Worrell, who are always willing to help out down at the house in a pinch or lend a truck for syruping at a moment's notice. Ribbing one last time the men of the mailroom, members of the admissions office, the infirmary, and Jim Kennedy at our very own golf shack. In all of his years at Hotchkiss, both in the classroom and outside of it, he has managed, through a genuine care for the livelihood of others and fierce and unrivaled loyalty, to instill positive change in all that he has touched. Sometimes when we tell people that our dad is still teaching, they marvel. How does he do it? Beyond the delight in rediscovery, we think that it comes from our father simply carrying the mail day in and day out. He told me once that when you start to add it up, it's time to stop. And I have to say, he's actually still not adding it up. But it is just time to move on to Vermont to have more time for the passions he and Kathy love: nature, birds, syruping, quiet time and space to read. But I thought we might add it up for him. When you do the math, and forgive me, Arthur, Eddie, you and I both know geometry was a rough go, not my long suit, you come up with some astonishing numbers. 12 years in the dorm.
81 seasons coached.
180 sections of English taught.
380 advisees.
1,170 faculty meetings, give or take a few.
1,800 students taught.
Wow. 3,312 Chicago Cubs losses as of yesterday.
4,002 comments written, half of which we edited, so if those are bad, sorry.
4,698 practices coached.
And last but not least, the most astounding statistic, Boscow's, where are you? 655,200 batting practice pitches thrown. And what all of us here will take from our time spent with him in the classroom, on the fields, on the trails, in the woods, is the intangible moment that you will always have. The snippet of a Burns poem recited that you'll always remember, the moment of good humor, the halftime lesson about endurance, the certainty of his support and guidance through a tough moment that he was always willing to share with you.
So thank you, Dad, from everyone here. We hope that you enjoy the longest of all aesthetic breaks, and thank you for carrying the mail. pleasure of inviting one of my former babysitters up here to speak, Jeannie.
You're as beautiful now as you were then. I'm glad the lights went back on, because if they hadn't, I would have to sing to you, and trust me, it would be a very bad thing. This has been such a special night. First, let me begin by thanking everyone who has spoken for sharing such heartfelt expressions of appreciation and gratitude. Nancy and Geoff, I want to extend my deepest congratulations to both of you. The number of people in this tent and the gratitude so palpable here testifies to the deep and lasting role you have played in so many lives. At Hotchkiss, we say we aspire to excellence in teaching, but we only ever succeed to the extent that our teachers set our classrooms ablaze with the fires of imagination and of wonder. Mar, I am so grateful to have sat in your classroom as your student. We talk about excellence in teaching. You give real shape to those words. Thank you for the passion, the dedication, and the artistry you've brought to learning at Hotchkiss. We are a school, and as a school, we tend to the intellectual growth of our students. But we are also a boarding school, and as a boarding school, we tend equally to the internal lives of our students in our care. At Hotchkiss, we could not take that responsibility more seriously or more solemnly, and no one has called us to that duty more than Nancy Bird. Because of you, Nancy, we pay ever greater attention to taking care of our students. Thank you for your courage, your professionalism, and your devotion. Thank you all so much for coming tonight and for paying tribute to two pillars of our community. Let's conclude the evening by saying thank you one more time to Nancy and to Geoff.